All right, guys, we are going to be reacting to why Russians live in ugly Soviet apartment. Thank you so much for support, guys. For the full experience or get early access to a lot of this content, simply visit us in boosty.io. I think a lot of you guys already subscribed. You guys can see the difference. Unedited versions, early access. You guys don't have to wait. And you know, it's some of you guys want to still support us through YouTube. That's fine. Make sure you guys subscribe. With you still trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. Let's jump in here. Let's see what's going on.
This is an apartment from the USSR where tens of millions of Russians are still living today. I grew up in an apartment like this and my entire family lived in just 30 square meters. Today I'll show you what life is really like inside one of these Soviet apartments, why USSR built millions of them, and how they are so bad and still cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would never move back here. This is what it looks like when you grow up in a typical Russian city. Rows of these identical gray apartment blocks. Most of them are 5 stories tall, and there is normally a bomb shelter in the basement because it was built during the Cold War when people thought they might actually need it one day. The grandmas who live here try to make the country yard look nicer. They use old car tires to make flower beds, decorations, and even fences. And the first floor apartments still have bars on the windows because Russia was really dangerous in 1990s. These apartments always have grandma surveillance system, and apparently we were noticed. She heard us speak in English and she thought it was suspicious, so she started filming us on her phone. I spent years as a kid playing at the Soviet playground. Honestly, the playground looks just as depressing as when I was a child. We were detected by one more grandma. She is looking straight at us.
The other one took some videos of me from the balcony, and I looked up and I waved, and she just went, I'm not videoing you.
To get inside, you need a magnetic key to open the entrance door. Then you immediately have to walk up half a flight of stairs. And only then does the first floor begin. This helps to keep the building warmer during Russia's long winters. Inside there is always a lot of green paint, and you see the same color in every school, hospital, and government building. The government thinks that it makes these buildings feel less depressing, but personally I think it has the opposite effect. But people
Like
still try to
70s
decorate
style.
and make it look nicer. Somebody even put
Nice.
a painting here. Oh, a lot of paintings. They actually did try to make it less depressing here.
Yeah.
The nice elephants and a plant. London Tower Bridge. Also there are some Orthodox icons.
Yeah.
Right here protecting the mail. Buildings like this don't have elevators, so we have to climb all the way up to the 5th floor. So this is the whole lighting system of the common areas. I know it looks fancy, but you know what's even fancier? This electrical solutions. Neighbors often fence off their section of the hallway with gates like these. And you also can see that every apartment door is different. It's because people usually replace the original Soviet door and install their own custom one. And here we've got 2 doors, as they usually have it in Russian apartments. Because of the 90s were actually dangerous, you can see a lot of security precautions inside of these apartments, like there's 2 doors, as I told you already. One of them is wooden, so I don't understand how it would help you if people already broke through the metal door, but whatever. And then you have one lock here, and you have this system, we call it domophone. So downstairs at the entrance, they have this button keypad, and you call the number of the apartment. Ours is 14, and it rings here. If it's somebody I know, I press this button with this key and the door opens. The very first second you are entering, you need to put your coat here, winter coat, wipe off your snow. Also then you use the second one here. We don't use it in summer. And then you put on тапочки. Тапочки is this flip-flops, and they're mandatory in Soviet apartments. And to make it more beautiful and bright, they put a sky on top of the ceiling. They made it out of blue wallpaper. My parents were so happy the day they got this little apartment. Before
I'll
it,
be happy
they
too.
had been living in a communal apartment called the Communalka. The Bolsheviks had a housing crisis after the 1917 revolution. So they took the big, elegant apartments of the old upper class, pushed the former owners into a single room, and moved in workers and peasants, 1 family per room. Several unrelated families, total strangers, shared 1 kitchen kitchen, 1 bathroom, and 1 hallway. On average, 5 families lived in one big apartment. Up to 80% of people in Moscow lived like this for decades.
Wow.
5 families shared 1 stove. The bathroom ran on a schedule. Notes on the wall sorted out whose turn it was to clean. There was a constant war over a shared toilet, so when my grandparents got their own 300 square feet box with their own front door that locked, to them it was true freedom. They had their own kitchen, their own bathroom, and a door no stranger could open. And after the communal apartment, the Khrushchevka was a dream come true. So how did you get one of these apartments? Because you could not buy them. The state actually owned it and assigned it to you for free. You had to get onto a waiting list, usually through your job, and then you waited sometimes a few years and very often 10 or more. A lot of the housing was tied straight to your workplace. The factory built the buildings and handed the flats to its own workers. So your home and your job and your city came as one package. There was a special stamp in your passport that controlled where you were even allowed to live. But because the official way was so slow, people used the unofficial one. We call it blat, which is connections and favors and knowing somebody. One word in the right ear could move you up the list and find you a better flat. Officially, housing was a right the state handed everyone equally. But unofficially, like everything else, it ran on who you knew. You know, there's not a lot of space in Khrushchevkas. Like right here, literally, we have our neighbors already. And as you can see, this weird layout. Right, our room ends there, and we have neighbors already there. So we don't have a lot of room, and there's not even room for your bulky winter clothes.
This is much better than a studio apartment in New York City. This is not that bad.
So we have Soviet attic, and this is where we would store all the winter clothes for the whole family. These 2 doors lead us normally to a bathroom and to a toilet, and they would be separate. And the toilet would be this big, literally just like the toilet itself. But here, it's been remade, and now they put toilet inside of the bathroom, and this is the whole bathroom.
That's not bad.
We have a heater.
I'm sorry,
which
that's not bad.
need. We do not actually use private heaters in Russia because, again, the hot water is provided by the government and every building has hot water. The reason why they have it here is because every summer in Russia, they turn off your hot water for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. It always happens for maintenance works, right? So people are getting sick of being using cold water for 1 month of the summer, so they installed this just for that very month. And cold water in Russia is freaking cold. Like, you wouldn't believe how cold it is. You can't even touch it. So, yeah, it's annoying. This thing is connected to hot water itself, and it's really hard to touch it. And the reason why it's here, because you dry your wet towels and clothes here. In every Soviet apartment, the bathroom and the pipes were always, they never tried to hide it, so you can still see it here. They tried to cover it with this curtain, but you know what, it's always here. And this is how it always looked like, right? A bunch of pipes, they're always visible. They did it not only because they tried to do everything fast and cheap, they also did it because it always needed repair, and it was really easy to access that. Here we have the most ingenious solution of Soviet mechanics. We have 1 tap for the sink and the bathroom, and don't tell me it's not genius. Like, really.
Yeah, it is.
How long it is.
It saves so much steel, I guess. I don't know what they're trying to say. The bath tap itself is actually so small, even if I tried to lay down in it, I couldn't. So this is yeah. And there is always this window that connects the bathroom and the kitchen. I don't know why, I guess to let some natural light sometimes into the bathroom if the light is off in the apartment. I have no idea. The Soviet Union had a giant problem in 1950s. The Second World War destroyed entire cities and most of the country's housing. People were living in barracks, in basements, in those packed communal apartments, and sometimes
it's true because a lot of the movies that we see from the Soviet era, you see a lot of this kind of whoa, what the hell? What the hell? What the hell was that? Okay, so you see a lot of these a lot of these houses, right? A lot of these guys lived in those houses. And the last one that we watched, the boys were, they were living in places like that. I think it was Marat's father has a better place that they were living. They got spoiled. They have a bigger house, but usually it was very, very simple.
Dugouts cut into the ground. And Khrushchev found a solution to the problem. He started literally stamping buildings out. They stripped every building down to the bare minimum a family needs, with no columns and no high ceilings. They picked one standard design and built it everywhere by the millions as fast as possible. The trick was prefabrication. They made these panels in factories and then they trucked them to construction site and then put them together like a giant Lego set. With this strategy, they could make a 5-floor building in about 2 weeks. The scale is almost impossible to picture. The country built housing for 84 million people in just 8 years. It is still the largest construction program in human history. And almost every bit of it looked exactly the same from Moscow to Vladivostok. And this is the size of Soviet kitchen. And kitchen in Khrushchevkas is actually the most important, the most visited room, and I'll explain to you why. In this Khrushchevka we have 2 rooms, but in a normal Khrushchevka you would only have 1 room, and it would be one
And I was gonna say, if you do like a minimalist style in one of these apartments, it's gonna have space, guys.
Dad. And 1 couch, it pulls out into a bed,
yeah,
and it's for the kids. And there would not be any private space, any privacy to talk, to discuss something. So when moms or dad's friends would come to this apartment, where are they gonna sit? Obviously not there, obviously not here, obviously not in a tiny bathroom.
And kitchen.
They all gather here. And it's the only place in the whole Khrushchevka where you can actually have some privacy from your kids. Everything is pretty much original here. Like this furniture comes in set with stools. And this was the most wanted piece of set of furniture. And my grandma actually stood in line for 3 years to get those. And here you can see that each stool actually has the Soviet
that probably costs a lot of money.
It says here,
costs a lot of money,
which means it's produced up to the government standard of these stools, which I guess is very good standard because they still are super solid.
Super steady.
And here you can see the price, 4 rubles 50 kopeka. And right now that would be 7 cents. So you can imagine how much back then 4 rubles were, and the average salary would be 130 rubles. So you can imagine, but right now it's only 7 cents. Kitchen in these apartment blocks is never just kitchen. You always have laundry here. As I said, there's no dryer, so it's just a washing machine, so it's very convenient to wash something and cook something at the same time. Sink is still original. It's very small, there's not a lot of space. Here we would have always trash still. And this tiny, tiny drawer. Just old Soviet cabinetries, but you don't have a lot of space here, as you can see. And nothing was taking a lot of space.
Well, but it was for free. You see what I'm saying? It was for free. So
this Soviet kettle is tiny. Even this stove is not that big. The cutting board is tiny. Even this cheese grate is tiny. Everything is miniature here because
practical.
You don't have a lot of space. Oven is still original. It still sounds original, and it's very
clean.
Small actually, as you can see.
Wow.
That's a tiny sheet of brownies.
It is really tiny, but I don't think back then we had brownies. But still, people still use it. People still live in these apartments.
We'll use it too.
And they cook here. And here you can see a tiny hole, and you get this matches here. So every time you use it, this is how you light it up. And it always had a cover, so you can cover it and turn it into a little bit more cooking space. It's still original, it's connected to the gas lines, and the hot water lines are also exposed, connected to this heater, and that's enough to make the whole apartment warm. The light switches are always on the outside of the room, so for example,
So basically, back then, the only country that I can think of where they have a communist system that was at least providing something to the people was the Russian one. Because Cuba is a mess, North Korea is a mess, but somehow Russia managed to at least provide to their people. That's good.
If my husband is inside, I can always turn off the light for him. I don't know why they did that, but it's also interesting that you have a light switch for the kitchen here. It's a little far, but whatever. Russians sort the whole housing world into 3 types, and the type you lived in immediately says a lot about your family. The first one is Stalinka. Those are the grand ones with ceilings over 3 meters, thick walls, big rooms, and sometimes columns out front. They're solid and beautiful, but slow and expensive, and you did not end up in Stalinka by being ordinary. You ended up there by being somebody. The Khrushchevka is the building I showed you, and it came next, and that is the one I grew up in. It was the budget option, the one for everybody. The Brezhnevka came after it. Those have 9 or 12 or 16 floors, an elevator, a garbage chute, and slightly bigger kitchens. The Khrushchevka was the first car your family owned, and the Brezhnevka was the same car with
Cars
the
are so
upgrade.
small.
This is a big Khrushchevka. This Khrushchevka is actually fancy because it has 2 rooms, as I already said. But normal Khrushchevka would have only this room. But this is fancy. Like, this is for people who are rich, and even now this apartment is actually pretty expensive because it's in the very center and it has 2 rooms. But this room was the most important room in my childhood. Every time during New Year, every time during big celebration, someone's birthday, we would invite, you wouldn't believe it, like, you think it's a small room? It was the biggest room for me in my childhood because 15-20 people would be sitting here. We would bring a table that can be unfolded, like this one actually. They actually have it here. It's here, but normally it would be longer and bigger. And you put a table here, right here, and you can put the whole family and all friends here to celebrate something together. So 3 people would sit here, 3 lucky people who had authority in the family, normally dads and some other lucky person, and everybody else would sit here all around the table. And I'm not kidding, in this very room, we would celebrate every single important event. And we don't have enough chairs and enough stools, so our neighbors and our friends would actually bring their own chairs and their own stools. And in this apartment, as I said, it's very fancy. We have 2 balconies, so we can actually see 2 different sides. Playground where you can see your children enjoying Soviet. I'm not gonna cut it out.
No, keep going.
Honestly, I'm not gonna cut it out because it does get me depressed, and it's really hard for me because, like, all my childhood I spent in one of these apartments, and it brings back so many memories, and people are still living here, and it, like, even after an hour here, you feel this post-Soviet trauma, and, like, I just want to be out.
Yeah, at least they have a place to stay. Like, I don't have any problem with I think she might be doing a little bit too much.
Out of here, just want to show it to you and be out of here. It's really hard for me. But yeah, you should understand that I spent all my childhood here, and I was actually very happy, but I don't want to be back there. As I
that's
already
fine.
told you, we have pull-out couch, kids are there, your wife is there, there's absolutely no room there, so they used a balcony and sometimes still use as a gym. And
Really?
here they have Soviet dumbbell. Very heavy. I have no idea how heavy it is, but, like, yeah, they're rusty. And they would work out here, laying here and doing push-ups and working on abs because, you know, there was no other floor space enough to lay down in the whole apartment. We have some nice decorations homemade. And, you know, every Soviet apartment, as I said, tried to make it nice. It tried to make it a little bit more bright compared to the weather in apartments outside. And they would make the accent walls and choose, like, nice colors, sheets, put this carpets, the rugs. And the interesting thing is that we had different flooring, still have different flooring in every different room. So here we have some fake wood, but it's actually linoleum. Here we have some fake parquet, also linoleum. A little bit more fake wood. Then
But
we've
you know what's
got-
crazy? That fake wood, it's actually used in mostly all modern apartments, by the way. In the United States, even mine is fake wood too. It's smart though. You don't want to just really cut the wood and put it underneath your floor. Actually, it's very dangerous. The reason it's dangerous because you can get I forgot what it was. I got a couple of them in New York. Not sprinkle. I forgot. Small pieces of stick can get through your skin. I forgot the name of it. Splinters. Thank you. You can get splinters, so it's better to have fake wood.
this kitchen linoleum and this bathroom tile. This is going to annoy a lot of people, but in a lot of ways, these neighborhoods were better to actually live in than the ones in America. These buildings were planned in groups called a micro-district, and the whole thing was designed so everything you needed sat within walking distance.
Oh, I see.
You didn't need a car, which was lucky because most of us did not have one. My
That makes sense.
micro-district came with a standard kit. It had a school, a kindergarten, a clinic, a pharmacy, a grocery shop, department store, post office, savings bank, hair salon, and a house of culture for clubs and films and dances. The bus stop took my parents to work. Everything was a 5-minute walk from our door, and the whole thing was copy-pasted across the city. These neighborhoods were built to be complete. You were born in the local maternity hospital, you went to the local school, you married someone from 2 buildings over, and you worked at the plant down the road. No car, no commute, your kids walk into school on their own, your grandmother with a clinic, and the shop is right downstairs. And half of Russia still lives the same way now. Here we have
I think this is great content, by the way.
Soviet door. I literally grew up with this glass of this color, this yellow color that has this texture, and my grandma really loved it. And every Soviet apartment obviously has furniture that always would come in set, and people again would wait years to get this. That opens this way for whatever reason. Matching wardrobe that it looks like that. And then we have the matching nightstands. They always use this kind of wallpaper that makes it brighter and adds some colors in your life. For the same reason they have bright
that's
for the
tough.
same reason they have bright sheets on beds, so you can, you know, feel a little bit better in this gray city. We did not have dryers still in Russia and never had in the USSR. It's just not a thing, you know, something that never came to Russia. I think it's a European thing, honestly. And this is how we dry clothes still.
Yeah.
And we always have 2 sets of
What's on our
curtains.
balcony?
The first one is transparent because, like, for whatever reason, like, you know, it is really weird to me how in the US you're living on the first floor and everybody can see you like this. Is it cozy? No, but this is cozy.
Somebody thinks they know something.
Well, but no, seriously, isn't this much better and cozier than this?
All right, I'll give Soviets 1 point.
And the Khrushchevka was never meant to last. The whole plan was that these were temporary, built to stand maybe 25 years because communism would surely deliver something better by the 1980s, and this would all come down. But now, more than 60 years later, millions of people still live in them, including people I grew up with. And they all are identical. The same building, the same plan, the same door, the same furniture, and even the same wallpaper. Everything was identical, so we turned it into a national joke. There is a film from 1975 called The Irony of Fate. A man gets drunk in Moscow and ends up on a plane to St. Petersburg by accident. He gives the taxi his home address, and then he arrives at an identical building on an identically named street. Then his key fits the identical lock. The furniture inside is identical to his own. So he passes out in a total stranger's apartment, completely convinced he is at home. And we still watch this film every single New Year's Eve in Russia, because a lot of us are still living in the same identical apartments. But there is one more place we sometimes call home. It is the dacha. USSR handed out little plots of land outside the city for free to everybody. And people built a small little house on it, mostly with their own hands, out of whatever they could find. And then people grew food, the potatoes and cucumbers and tomatoes and berries. People would spend the whole week in the
that's real life.
apartment block, and every weekend they would come to dacha by train. The cramped concrete apartment and the dacha were two halves of one Soviet life. And it was never only a Russian story. Walk through Warsaw, Budapest, Bucharest, or the eastern half of Berlin, and you will see the exact same buildings. The entire eastern bloc was rebuilt out of these prefab panels. So this is not just a Russian thing. This building is what home looks like for hundreds of millions of people across half of Europe. And then we have a balcony, and every Soviet apartment was actually fine to get balcony or even two balconies like in this apartment, and it was an actual privilege to live in one. It works like windows because it's very cold, so it actually locks and it doesn't let any air in. It has this smart system. And this one is very old, kind of sketchy.
I really don't want you to fall.
It does look a little sketchy. It does look a little sketchy. Let's go.
I know it's been homemade.
The Soviet apartments normally would come with balconies that are not closed. It wouldn't have these windows, right? It would just have this wall here up to here, and it would be fully open.
Extended it though.
But as you can imagine, it's really cold in winter, and they wanna extend their apartment, even though it's like 2 square meters, but it doesn't matter. So they closed it, and.
This is a very homemade construction here.
Yeah, maybe they didn't do a good job, but they tried.
It is very homemade-ish.
I can't help it, but even in summer, the view outside is so depressing. Here we have one thing that Americans don't have, and they really should, and it's called подоконник. And this is really great. Maybe they have it in cold states in New York, because in winter you get a lot of condensation because it's so warm here, so cold outside. You get a lot of condensation here, and all gets here, so it doesn't drip, and it really protects everything from molding. So this is the most important piece of equipment of Soviet Khrushchevka, of Soviet apartment. It's a radiator, and it's connected to the boiler, and it's full of hot water in winter, and it's cold, just like right now in summer. And you cannot control your own heating. The government actually controls it for you. In winter, it gets so hot, you cannot even touch it, and you cannot regulate it. My method, and every Russian's method of regulation of hot apartment is this. Ta-da! So I'm always sleeping with open windows, even when it's -20. And there's no AC, and honestly, like, I had no idea what AC is up until I left Russia the first time, when I was 19, because we never used AC. And only now, like starting 4 years ago, we started using AC in Russia because it's finally getting hot.
At least you guys are smart, man. I mean, Europeans, the Western Europeans, they're not using any.
And like Russian summers didn't get used to be like more than 24 Celsius, but now it actually can get up to like 28, 30. So people are using ACs, but not here. Here, everything is frozen in time. Here we have Soviet chandelier.
It feels like you're being interrogated. Yeah. What are the nuclear launch codes?
Спасибо. This country yard is where I actually grew up. We call it dvor, and for a kid in those years, it mattered more than the apartment did. My whole childhood happened out here. We were outside from morning until dark with no supervision at all. Our parents were not scared because every grandma on every bench was the neighborhood security system. And in most regional towns, they just don't think that road to your apartment block is even important, so it's kind of like dirt roads. In our country yard, we had a metal frame for beating the dust out of carpets, a sandbox, a rusty climbing frame, and rows of metal garages for the few families with a car. After the Soviet Union fell apart, the state started the biggest property handover in human history. The government let people privatize for free the apartments they were already living in. Tens of millions of ordinary families went from tenants of the state to owners of real estate overnight. And people still own them today, and tiny apartments can cost $200,000. years, because they're often located in central areas. Now Russia's finally tearing them down. But you can't just take someone's apartment away, so residents get a brand new apartment in the same neighborhood for free. Surprisingly, many don't want to leave. Most are older people who spend their entire lives here and still remember how excited they were to get these apartments in the first place. For a country coming out of revolution and war, this was not just a building. It was the place where modern Russian life was born. And as much as I want to never go back in these walls, I had a very happy childhood. Without these apartments, my parents had no safety, and who knows, maybe I would have not even been born. And while my grandma and the whole remaining Soviet-born population of Russia are still living in these apartments, my generation is building a better life. And I'm grateful to these buildings, and I hate them. Thank you guys for joining me in this journey.
And I think that's a fair assessment. You don't have to, you know, understand their purpose. I think that's what she's trying to say. But at the same time, make sure you always moving forward with them. I do think, guys, I do think that this, you know, did what it did back then, and some folks are being smart about it. They're creating a more minimalist design to make it look much better. We reacted to multiple buildings and multiple bloggers showing some of these apartments. Also, the fact that Russia is even updating some of these designs, hey, that's a good indication. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, guys. I will see you next one. I'm out.